This leads our bulletin. The family of Ekurhuleni MMC for Roads and Transport, Andile Mngwevu, has asked for privacy as they process their grief. Mngwevu's body was found with those of 3 people who were with him when their vehicle was swept away in the recent floods in Mozambique's Chokwe region. We now go live to SABC News reporter Mbalenhle Mthethwa, who's there for us. A very good afternoon, Mbalenhle. Now, in as much as the family has sought privacy during this difficult period, they have availed a family spokesperson to share important details with the public. But before you speak to the spokesperson, we also understand that you actually were able to track down a close comrade and friend of Mr. Mngwevu to just find out on just their relationship and who exactly this man was beyond being an ANC member, beyond being a councillor, but just a friend.
Yes, certainly. And, you know, when we speak about the statement that was released by the family late last night, you will hear the message that he was more than just a political head and someone who served the community, but he was described as someone who was a father, a friend, and a pillar of hope for the family that is now grieving. And they've described this grief as profound, and they said this profound grieving period, they were, as they explained in that statement and how they described it. So you can imagine the kind of pain that the passing of Andile Mngwevu, who we know as the Ekurhuleni MMC for Roads and Transport, but to them he's a father and he's more than just the MMC, and they have lost a brother. And for he has lost a comrade and a friend. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us. You know him as a friend, you know him as a comrade. Talk to him. What is your fondest moment with him, and how will you perhaps remember him, and how do you think South Africans should also remember him?
Well, thank you, Mbal, for the opportunity. I think this is one of the most saddest moments in our life, as friends, as comrades, as colleagues, because Andile was a very direct spoken person. He would not beat around the bush. He will tell you exactly how he felt, what he thought. He was a fighter, you know, and he's one person that was extremely loyal. He would never disappoint you at any given time. He would be quite honest and quite frank. He usually called himself the honey badger, you know. So we have lost a great man. We have lost a dedicated father. We have lost a dedicated comrade, a person that gave all himself.
In giving of himself, I mean, he was also quite popular within the community. But before we get to his popularity in the community, just talk to me about us, really about your fondest memory. As you stand, when you heard the news, where did your mind go? Which memory stood out the most for you?
You know, there are quite a number of memories that I've shared with him, and I think the one that comes close and vividly to my mind is the one when he was singing in the car. There's a video that is currently making circulation of him singing Mawabizwa Magama Bangcwele Ngabela Kholikona. On that day, we were actually traveling to council together. You know, he was still the strategic advisor to the current speaker of council, Council Elder Woman Dora Mlambo, when she was still MMC, you know. And, you know, when he entered that vicinity of EGSC with the car on full blast and singing out loud, and when you approached him, that he was just an honest person. He was a highly spirited person, and those are some of the fondest moments. The recent one was the birthday dinner that we shared with him, not knowing that would have been our last dinner, our last supper with him. He was so happy. He was thrilled to celebrate his birthday, and he was just being Andile, you know, so openly spoken and laughing all along. You know, he was one person that would share a joke or two at all given moments and all given time.
And we know that he celebrated his birthday even in public at the Mgazi well, where that spot in Guatemala that we both know very popularly, that he would have been celebrating there. Tell us about it, because I remember the annual party, last year's party, or the year before, it was packed to the rafters. Were you expecting a similar turnout this year?
We were expecting the similar turnout because he was a people's person. People loved him. because of he was not just a business person or a co-owner or whatever you might call it of the place. He gave to the community. Just in December, or before Christmas, he handed out food parcels to the society around that area. So people in the area loved him. He was a compassionate person. He's a person that cared. He had a football team because that's what he wanted. He wanted to see young people. He wanted to see the community extremely happy. So we would have expected a turnout to be extremely high, so that we just celebrate him and his legacy.
Khotso, you should perhaps consider still hosting the birthday celebration even as in his absence. We're now joined by the family spokesperson. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us. You worked as his advisor, and you're now speaking on behalf of the family. In the statement, you mentioned that this grief is so profound, which paints a picture of the kind of pain that Andile's mother might perhaps be going through, his father might perhaps be going through, his wife, his children, his sister was supposed to join us right now but has opted not to join us. Talk to us about how people are feeling inside the house.
Good afternoon, Sisi. I must say that it is very difficult in the house. As you correctly said, that the process of, getting into this grieving process, is a very difficult one. You spoke about the mother, you spoke about the wife, the father, the kids. They are still devastated. They never hoped that they will hear such news. All we're all hoping for was to get different news that they were found and they're still alive. So I think we're still dealing with that process. The family is dealing with that process, of the grieving. And only now we're starting with the process of the grieving. I'm sure you'll understand that process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And in the statement, you also describe him as a father, a pillar of the family. Talk to us about, the intimate moments that he would perhaps have with his children, or how the children have responded, or someone in the family has responded, or those intimate moments. How was he was he any different when he was with family and when he was perhaps with the comrade? Because the friend describes him as someone who had a sense of humor.
I must say Andile Mngwevu loved his family. Particularly, every time when he enters the house, you'll see the kids, running to him and say, "Daddy, Daddy," So he was a very person that loved his kids, children very much. And I'm saying this, you can even go to his Instagram page. I'm sure you'll see him doing some dance with his kids there. So he was very, very fond of his children, and mostly very fond of his wife as well. So he was a very man that was committed. He would do everything outside with the comrades and everything with his comrades. But when it comes to his family, I tell you, it was a different story. So he really loved his kids. He loved his family so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. There you have it. A man who loved his family, who loved his wife, who loved his children dearly. The children who would always welcome him with an ecstatic glow on their faces to see their father screaming, "Daddy, Daddy," have lost a father. And the wife who was loved dearly has lost a husband rather, and the mother and father who also loved their son dearly have also lost a son. It's a sad moment for the Mngwevu family as they grieve and they begin the process. And as you've heard, they were hopeful that they would have gotten a different set of news, that he was recovering somewhere in a hospital and was alive and was coming back home alive. But unfortunately, they are here preparing for a funeral.